The sky churned with killing intent, thunder rumbling beneath layers of cloud as if the heavens themselves were holding their breath. In the vast emptiness above the land, two figures moved like fleeting stars, one fleeing, one pursuing each step soaked in danger. For Han Li, this was no longer a matter of escape, but of survival. One miscalculation, one moment of hesitation, and his path of cultivation would end here, buried beneath divine flames and holy sand. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Senior. I've already shaken off these soaring tribes cultivators 3 times, and each time I left them far behind. Han Li said, his face deathly pale, every word heavy with exhaustion. Yet every time they quickly managed to pick up my trail again. Could it be that they possess some kind of spiritual sense enhancement technique beyond even the Great Development? Technique? How else could they detect me from such a distance? At this moment, Han Li had already lifted the Solok seal. His body shot through the heavens like an azure streak of light, tearing through the air with terrifying speed. This was already the 3rd time he had done so, each time forcibly invoking the blood shadow evasion technique, pushing his physical body to the very brink of collapse. Had he not relied on several high-grade secret techniques to forcibly suppress the violent backlash of baleful qi, and consumed over a dozen drops of myriad spirit milk to compensate for the terrifying loss of blood essence demanded. By blood shadow evasion, he feared he would not have been able to continue fleeing at all. Even so, under such brutal strain, he had already lost 3 full years of cultivation. If not for the vast number of medicinal pills he had swallowed along the way, it was entirely possible that his cultivation would have plummeted by an entire realm. With his body stretched to its absolute limits and late nascent soul cultivators relentlessly pursuing him, Han Li was mired in a life-and-death crisis. Yet before he could determine how the soaring tribe's immortals were tracking him, he dared not recklessly use the blood shadow evasion technique again. Otherwise, he would only be destroying himself while still inevitably being hunted down in the end. Monarch Soul Divergence let out a cold snort. Although I am fully confident in my great development arts, he said flatly, I would never dare claim that it stands unrivaled as the supreme spiritual sense technique in the cultivation world. While those with aptitude surpassing mine are rare, they do exist. Still, the likelihood of them possessing a spiritual sense technique powerful enough to accomplish this is extremely low. However, those chasing you are not tracking you through an overwhelmingly powerful spiritual sense at all. They are using inhuman means. Han Li's heart jolted as realization dawned upon him. Inhuman means? He asked sharply. You mean that demon beast? That's right, Monarch Soul Divergence replied. Didn't you sense something akin to a demon beast behind you? Its form matches exactly what the soaring tribe's mortals described as their patron deity, the Endless Sky Beast. Those from the Endless Sky temples most likely summoned it deliberately, seeking to reclaim the face they lost after you slaughtered their nascent soul immortals. Something not belonging to this world tracking you down so effortlessly is hardly surprising. Han Li's brows furrowed. After a moment of hesitation, he asked the Endless Sky Beast. I took note of it before, but that creature only possesses magical power comparable to a 7th-grade demon beast, far inferior to the Mulan's. Sacred bird. How could it possibly possess such abilities? Her Monarch Soul Divergence chuckled darkly. You once told me about the war on your continent, and how the Mulan summoned a projection of their sacred bird with the aid of a treasure, an illusory body that descended briefly into this world. But from what I sensed, the demon beast pursuing you possesses a genuine physical body. If that is the case, then the Endless Sky Beast likely employed a method similar to the Elder Devil's possession technique, using other beasts as mediums to descend into this world. Do not underestimate what this incarnation is capable of. Given enough time, it could grow into an existence of terrifying might. To my knowledge, there are several such incarnations that have descended into this realm. Each is fearsome beyond measure, and they are rarely ever witnessed by ordinary cultivators. Han Li's expression darkened. "There are such beings within our mortal world," he muttered. Then he shook his head slightly. "But there is no time to dwell on this. Whether it is a demon beast or some so-called holy beast, does xianxia have a method to escape its pursuit? If the seal continues to be lifted, things will grow extremely troublesome." Sweeping his spiritual sense behind him, Han Li spotted 3 cultivators and a demon beast rapidly closing in. His heart sank. Monarch Soul Divergence replied gravely, "There are countless strange beasts in the upper realms. Who can say what astonishing methods it is using to track you? That said, your chi concealment techniques are already quite impressive in my eyes. Unfortunately, there are no truly effective solutions other than slaying the beast outright. Still, I can teach you a simple method of feigning death, one that can extinguish all signs of life within your body. However, I cannot say how effective it will be. After all, that beast may not be tracking you through your aura at all." Han Li fell silent. Then a cold glint flashed through his eyes. "Very well," he said fiercely. "Then I will kill it." Monarch Soul Divergence exclaimed in alarm, "I fear you will not have such an opportunity. The beast is accompanied by 2 grand immortals, and that masked woman at mid-nascent soul stage should be the Endless Sky Saintess. Her abilities are not to be underestimated. If I do not take this risk," Han Li replied coldly, "then there will be no opportunity at all. To succeed, I will have to treat my second nascent soul as a disposable resource." At this moment, Silvermoon spoke up softly. "Master, if that is your plan, I wish to assist you as well." Han Li turned to her and asked, "How are your injuries? Will you be able to persist in drawing their attention away as an artifact spirit?" Silvermoon smiled gently. "I am the artifact spirit of Master's magic treasure. No matter how severe my injuries may be, as long as Master's flying swords are not destroyed, I will not perish. Master need not worry for my sake. At worst, I will simply remain asleep within your magic treasure for a few years." After pondering for a moment, Han Li let out a quiet sigh. "All right. Given our current predicament, I'll have to trouble you." Soon after, Han Li learned the incantation for feigning death from Monarch Soul Divergence. Once he committed it to memory, he immediately placed his hand atop his head. A flash of black light erupted as his second nascent soul emerged, opening its mouth to spit out the yin-sifting banner. The banner shook violently as it leaped into the air. In the blink of an eye, roiling black clouds surged forth, spreading like a storm and blotting out the sky within a radius of over a kilometer, filling the heavens with thick, devilish chi. "Take this," Han Li said in a commanding voice. "If the Endless Sky Saintess chases after you with the beast, use this sword to strike it down." With a wave of his hand, he summoned a thumb-sized crimson sword and flung it into the black clouds, the Blood Devil sword. A piercing shriek echoed from within the clouds as the sword shot forth, tearing through the sky with terrifying momentum. Han Li cast one last gloomy glance at the distant devilish clouds. Then he flipped his hand, producing a small bottle, and swallowed a single drop of myriad-year spirit milk. Spiritual light burst forth from his body as he once again transformed into an azure streak, ripping through the heavens. What's going on?" The purple-haired woman cried out in astonishment. "If I'm not mistaken, that foreign cultivator's nascent soul has materialized and fled on its own." The elegant man shook his head gravely. "That cannot be correct. An ordinary nascent soul cannot move independently once separated from the body. Yet now that person is fleeing in a direction entirely different from his nascent soul. Could he have cultivated something similar to the 3-corpse soul technique?" The purple-haired woman's expression turned contemplative. "If he intends to use a doppelganger technique to escape us, it will not succeed. As long as we keep track of the nascent soul, it will not be able to flee either. And since an intact nascent soul has already escaped, this does not resemble the 6-soul divisions technique fellow Taoist Gui cultivates. Could it be a legendary second nascent soul?" A flicker of alarm passed through the saintess's eyes. Turning toward her, the elegant man asked, "Did the holy beast sense anything unusual?" "It did not," the saintess sighed softly. The holy beast only managed to bring a trace of its spiritual sense into this world. It will require over 100 years of cultivation before it can fully wield its perception. At present, its abilities are severely limited, as its cultivation is merely at the level of a 7th-grade demon beast. The elegant man pondered briefly before speaking again. This complicates matters. Since we cannot determine which is genuine, neither can be allowed to escape. How about this? I pursue the nascent soul, while you two chase after the man alongside the holy beast. With my abilities, dealing with a mere nascent soul should not take long. That sounds like a solid plan, the purple-haired woman said with a smile. With me accompanying the saintess, nothing will go wrong. And although that nascent soul may not be his primary soul, do not destroy it for now. First extract from it the method of breeding gold-devouring beetles. Of course, the elegant man replied calmly. I had the same thought. The saintess found no fault with the plan and nodded in agreement. The elegant man immediately parted ways, transforming into a 30-meter-long streak of green light as he chased after Han Li's second nascent soul, vanishing beyond the horizon. The endless sky saintess and the purple-haired woman maintained their course, continuing their pursuit of Han Li. Soon after traveling more than 50 kilometers, the two rapidly closed the distance between themselves and their prey. We should be no more than 30 kilometers away now, Han Li said quietly. Silvermoon, it's time for you to leave. His sleeve trembled as a small silver wolf flew out, landing lightly at his side. In a blur of silver light, Silvermoon assumed Han Li's exact appearance. A trace of bitterness appeared on Han Li's face, but time was pressing. He said nothing further, instead retrieving a storage pouch and a thumb-sized azure pearl, handing them to Silvermoon. As a tool spirit without a physical body, you won't be able to manipulate magic treasures, as deftly Han Li explained. Take the gold-devouring beetles and the lightning pearl with you. If that demon beast gives chase, do not concern yourself with anything else. Focus solely on wounding it. It will suffice as long as you temporarily cripple it. Master, rest assured, Silvermoon replied with resolve. If the endless sky beast follows me, I will not allow it to escape so easily. With that, Silvermoon, wearing Han Li's form, shot through the sky in a streak of silver light. Han Li watched Silvermoon's transformed figure recede into the distance, unable to suppress a soft sigh of amazement. Her illusion was flawless, whether in appearance, aura, or spiritual fluctuations. She was indistinguishable from him in every conceivable way. Senior, do you think Silvermoon's illusion techniques will be enough to deceive the two pursuers? Han Li asked, monarch soul divergence. At the very least, they shouldn't be able to see through her. Even I can't detect the slightest discrepancy. Your artifact spirit is truly extraordinary. Monarch soul divergence replied with rare admiration. Even I cannot fully perceive through her illusion. At times it appears faint, and at others unfathomably profound. If not for their holy beast, those two would never be able to tell the two of you apart. Han Li fell silent, though the unease in his heart refused to dissipate. He still resolutely flew off in the opposite direction from Silvermoon, his figure quickly vanishing into the distance. Naturally, Han Li could not have known that giving Silvermoon a portion of the gold-devouring beetles would prove to be an unintentionally brilliant move. When the soaring tribe's immortals witnessed Han Li splitting into two identical figures that fled in different directions, the purple-haired woman and the saintess exchanged startled glances and halted mid-air. The purple-haired woman brushed a strand of hair from her face, clicking her tongue in amazement. What kind of technique is this? An incarnation art. Their auras and spiritual chi fluctuate at the same level, and they're identical in every detail. That foreign cultivator truly possesses an astonishing number of methods. With a faint frown and a trace of frustration, the saintess said, the distance between them is already too great. With spiritual sense alone, there's no way to determine which one is genuine. I'll have the holy beast examine them. She murmured several words in an ancient tongue toward the endless sky beast. In response, azure light erupted from its body as the pair of bull horns atop its head turned crystalline and translucent. The beast cried out several times before transmitting its findings through spiritual sense. "This is troublesome," the saintess said grimly. "He must have realized that we were tracking him through the scent of the gold-devouring beetles. Both incarnations carry the beetle's aura, and even the holy beast cannot tell them apart." The purple-haired woman raised an eyebrow. "If that's the case, then we can't allow either of them to escape." "It doesn't matter," the saintess replied coolly, a faint chill creeping into her smile. "Let us each pursue one. We're already this close, and since he's resorted to splitting us apart, he shouldn't have many tricks left. If he wants to divide our forces, then let us graciously oblige him." "Yes, but I've heard that although this man is only at mid-nascent soul cultivation, his true combat strength rivals that of a late-nascent soul cultivator," the purple-haired woman said with some concern. "Still, he's injured. If you encounter his true body, he shouldn't pose too much of a threat. I'll pursue the other one. As long as he doesn't use any strange movement techniques, I can deal with him and regroup with you shortly." "Immortal son, there's no need to worry," the saintess replied with confidence. "That crimson movement technique clearly comes at an immense cost. Otherwise, he would have used it long ago to escape us entirely. He's already at the end of his rope. Besides, I have the holy cauldron to protect me." "In that case, all is well," the purple-haired woman said with a smile. With that, she transformed into a streak of purple light and shot off after one of the Hanli figures. The saintess followed the other, a cold gleam flashing in her eyes. With an unusually solemn tone, Monarch Soul Divergence remarked, "They've separated just as you anticipated. Youngster Han, your plan was remarkably effective. It seems their holy beast only possesses a fragment of its soul and is severely limited. Even if you fail to slay the endless sky beast quickly, once the duration of the seal release ends, the two grand immortals will return. You'll be in grave danger, especially since the endless sky saintess is no easy opponent." Hanli swept his spiritual sense backward, locking onto the saintess trailing him. His expression darkened. "I have a plan," he said quietly. "I don't intend to kill the woman, only the holy beast. It won't take long." "Oh," Monarch Soul Divergence replied calmly. "Then I'll wait and see." Hanli said nothing more. When he sensed that the opportunity had arrived, he suddenly veered sharply in mid-air. Slapping his storage pouch, he released several thousand gold-devouring beetles in a roaring surge. They gathered into a vast, buzzing golden cloud that churned violently through the sky. At the same time, dozens of gleaming golden flying swords shot out from his sleeve. Guided by a spell seal, they multiplied and transformed into over 100 dazzling sword lights. Spiraling around his body, forming a pair of incantation gestures, Hanli shouted, "Join!" The sword lights trembled and soared upward, filling the heavens with blinding golden radiance. In the blink of an eye, they fused into a massive sword over 20 meters long, radiating terrifying might. Hanli then opened his mouth and spat out a ball of purple flames. The flames morphed into a foot-long firebird that plunged straight into the colossal sword. The firebird shattered upon contact, spreading purple flames across the blade's surface. From within those flames, countless arcs of golden lightning crackled and leapt, exuding destructive power. Hanli frowned slightly at the sight. After a moment's thought, he exhaled a stream of azure chi onto the sword. Instantly, the raging lightning vanished without a trace. Satisfied, Hanli nodded. With a thought, the golden sword shot skyward, plunging into the black clouds and disappearing completely. At that moment, a faint speck of light emerged at the horizon. It was the endless sky saintess. Hanli's eyes narrowed. His sleeve trembled as a set of azure flying swords burst forth, circling tightly around him. From his other sleeve, a blue shield flew out, positioning itself firmly in front of his body. He flipped his palms, summoning an ancient purple mirror obtained from Devil Fall Valley in one hand, and his spirit subjugation talisman in the other. With the Soluk seal lifted, the talisman's final use would elevate his cultivation even higher than before. Having prepared everything, Hanli quietly hovered in place, waiting. Though the holy beast's cultivation was not high, its speed was astonishing. Within a few breaths, It arrived several hundred meters before Han Li. Han Li coolly assessed the saintess before shifting his gaze to the endless sky beast. Aside from its massive bull-like head, he could not discern anything particularly fearsome about its appearance. Compared to the beast, however, the endless sky saintess was far more striking. Her presence exuded a unique and captivating charm, bolstered by her formidable cultivation. As Han Li studied her, she did the same. Though she was briefly startled by his youthful appearance, her attention was immediately drawn to the massive swarm of gold-devouring beetles overhead. A flash of delight crossed her face. The saintess began hesitantly, as if about to ask something. But Han Li had no intention of wasting even a moment. Time was running out before the Solok seal reasserted itself, and he feared the enormous sword hidden in the clouds might be discovered. Without a word, he pointed skyward. The beetle swarm surged forward like a golden tide. Simultaneously, the azure flying swords around him swept out in successive waves of sword blurs. "You're courting death," the endless sky saintess shrieked in fury. She raised her hand, and a dark green bracelet flew off her wrist, rapidly expanding as it rushed forward to meet the sword blurs. With her other hand, she flung a spirit beast pouch into the air. In a flash of golden light, more than 10 fully matured gold-devouring beetles burst forth, charging straight into Han Li's swarm. All the while, neither she nor the beast noticed that the black clouds overhead were slowly drawing closer. The jade bracelet was an ancient and formidable treasure. As soon as the azure sword blurs struck it, the band began spinning violently, trapping and suppressing all the sword lights within. Feeling his swords rendered completely ineffective by the overwhelming rotational force, Han Li's heart sank. As for the mature gold-devouring beetles, they held a clear advantage. Though Han Li's beetles vastly outnumbered them, they were utterly unable to injure the fully grown insects. Instead, the mature beetles devoured the smaller ones, effortlessly tearing through them one after another. Han Li's expression darkened. Without hesitation, he slapped the spirit subjugation talisman onto his body. Crimson light erupted from him as his form began to transform. Red scales spread across his skin, and a flood dragon horn emerged from his forehead. An awe-inspiring aura surged outward, shaking the air. The saintess gasped. "What technique is this?" Yet without the slightest fear, she opened her mouth and spat out a scarf-like magic treasure. It spiraled around her body before expanding to over 10 meters in length, standing upright to reveal the image of a colossal silver silkworm. Han Li's pupils constricted in alarm. Before he could fully assess the treasure, the silkworm portrait shimmered and sprang to life. It opened its mouth, unleashing dense streams of silver thread toward Han Li. Though separated by more than 300 meters, the threads crossed the distance in an instant. Startled, Han Li immediately pointed at the blue light shield. It expanded rapidly, forming a massive barrier that completely enveloped him. At the same time, he spat a ball of purple flame at the shield. Purple glacial chi burst forth from the barrier, flooding the area 10 meters ahead. With a thunderous crack, a towering purple ice wall 30 meters tall rose before him. With a thunderous clap, the silver thread slammed into the ice wall, punching countless tiny holes through its surface. Dense cracks spread rapidly, making it seem as though the wall would collapse at any moment. Han Li's expression did not change. He raised his hand and struck the ice wall with a spell seal. Purple light immediately surged across its surface, releasing an overwhelming burst of glacial chi. Not only were the holes left by the silver threads instantly repaired, but an additional layer of thick purple ice condensed around the wall, rendering it even more resilient. In the next instant, the glacial chi abruptly transformed into raging purple flames that raced along the silver threads toward the embroidered scarf magic treasure like slender violet serpents lunging viciously forward. The saintess's expression shifted in shock. What kind of vicious technique is this? Yet despite her surprise, her movements did not slow in the slightest. She formed an incantation seal and lightly pointed toward the floating scarf. The silver silkworm embroidered upon it opened its mouth once more. spewing out a puff of white flame that surged along the silver threads to meet the oncoming purple fire. The two flames collided violently upon the threads. Purple and white light intertwined and writhed together. But after only a brief stalemate, the purple flames surged forth, overwhelming the white flames and rapidly pressing forward. Seeing this, the saintess frowned deeply and spoke several words in an ancient tongue. At once the soaring sky beast beneath her let out a low roar and spat forth a stream of azure flames. Merging with the white flames, the azure-white fire barely managed to hold back the advancing purple ice flames. Seizing the momentary delay, the saintess waved her hand, summoning an octagonal metal pendant into her grasp before hurling it into the air. The pendant instantly expanded, transforming into a massive bagua diagram blazing with scarlet flames as it shot toward Han Li. Han Li curled his lips faintly. Without the slightest change in expression, thunder boomed from his back as a pair of silver wings burst forth. Just as the bagua diagram was about to strike his figure, blurred and vanished in a flash of silver lightning. The diagram struck empty air, 100 meters away. Han Li reappeared with a single flap of his wings, only to vanish again in another streak of lightning. Lightning movement, the saintess muttered, her expression turning solemn as she recognized the legendary technique. She swiftly formed an ancient hand seal. In response, the soaring sky beast spewed forth an immense sea of white mist, and both figures retreated into it without hesitation. In the blink of an eye, they vanished completely within the fog. Another peal of thunder rang out as Han Li reappeared at the edge of the mist, his face etched with surprise. His spiritual sense could not penetrate the white fog at all. There was no trace of the saintess within. However, he did not have the luxury of allowing them to hide. With a cold expression, Han Li waved his hand, summoning the ancient purple mirror before him. Pouring his spiritual power into it without restraint, the mirror pulsed violently and unleashed a brilliant beam of purple light into the mist. The beam caused the fog to churn and scatter rapidly, stripping away its concealment. Yet at that very moment, a stream of azure flame shot forth from the remaining mist, forcibly blocking the purple light's advance. Han Li's gaze sharpened. Through the thinning mist, he faintly discerned the solitary silhouette of the endless sky beast. There was no sign of the saintess atop it. A surge of joy flashed through Han Li's heart. He had been planning to separate the saintess from the holy beast, yet she had taken the initiative to abandon it herself. Though he did not know where she was hiding or what technique she was preparing, Han Li knew he could not let this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity slip away. Without the slightest hesitation, he issued a mental command. High above the colossal sword hidden within the clouds, let out a piercing howl. Lightning tore through the heavens as it cleaved the clouds apart and descended with terrifying speed toward the endless sky beast. Bathed in purple flames and golden lightning, the sword dragged thunder in its wake, poised to cleave the beast in two within mere moments. Han Li watched in delight, only for disbelief to twist his features. The endless sky beast's body suddenly unraveled into rolling waves of white mist, before vanishing completely. Caught up in the moment, Han Li had failed to see through the illusion and had struck too hastily. Not good. He shouted inwardly and immediately attempted to retreat. Yet a vast expanse of shimmering azure light descended from above, instantly slowing his movements. At the same time, the saintess's chanting echoed through the air. Han Li looked up sharply and saw a sphere of silver light hovering overhead. The saintess floated more than 100 meters above him, ancient silver patterns glowing upon her forehead. As she continued chanting, a small cauldron appeared in her hand, releasing a brilliant silver radiance that enveloped a 100-meter radius. The Heavenvoid Cauldron. Han Li cried out, his face draining of color. He hastily checked within himself. His own Heavenvoid Cauldron was still safely stored away. What is this? Is there truly a second Heavenvoid Cauldron in this world? Before he could recover from his shock, the cauldron above him surged with light and rapidly expanded. In the blink of an eye, it grew to 12 meters in size. Under the saintess's command, It began to blaze as an endless stream of sparkling azure sand poured forth, gathering into a massive cloud that swept down toward Han Li. Han Li flapped his wings instinctively, silver lightning bursting from his back. But in the next instant, faint thunderous roars echoed from within the white mist. The sound waves swept past him, causing the lightning on his wings to flicker and then vanish entirely. What ability is this? Han Li glanced toward the mist in alarm, barely catching sight of the endless sky beast's shadow at its edge. Whether it was real or false, he could no longer tell. The cloud of sand was already less than 30 meters away. With no means of escape, Han Li pointed toward the blue light shield, which instantly expanded into a massive barrier enveloping him. The moment the sand collided with the barrier, it flared with dazzling azure light and expanded explosively, each grain swelling into a boulder that smashed relentlessly against the shield. Boom after deafening boom echoed through the sky. No matter how formidable the barrier was, it could not withstand such an onslaught. It dimmed and wavered rapidly. At the same time, the sand cloud split apart, transforming into two massive flood dragons that coiled around the barrier, sealing Han Li within. Without hesitation, Han Li opened his mouth and spat out a small cauldron. Flicking it with his finger, blue icy flames bloomed across its surface. It was his divine spirit treasure, the Heavenvoid Cauldron he had cultivated to the first layer. Though he could only wield a fraction of its power, Han Li had been pushed to the brink. Sweeping his hand across its surface, a wave of blue light surged forth tightly, wrapping around his body. He spread his arms and flicked his fingers toward the sand flood dragons. A dozen streaks of azure sword chi shot out, tearing through the air and striking their heads, only to leave behind thumb-sized holes with little effect. Han Li's heart tightened. Before he could evade, an immense pressure descended upon him. His body felt as heavy as a mountain, his movements frozen completely. The flood dragons slammed into him, collapsing into clouds of sand with two muffled detonations. Brilliant light flared as the sand rapidly condensed, forming a massive cocoon that sealed Han Li within. The saintess had been startled when Han Li revealed a cauldron similar to her own holy treasure. But seeing him trapped so effortlessly, she relaxed and smiled faintly. The holy cauldron's sand was terrifyingly powerful. Once ensnared, even late nascent soul cultivators would be unable to escape in a short time. A deafening bang rang out as Han Li's blue barrier shattered. Another layer of sand immediately wrapped around him. At ease, the saintess descended, standing atop her colossal cauldron. Yet after descending only 30 meters, her expression suddenly froze. Countless beams of blue light erupted from within the hardened cocoon in all directions. Before she could issue another command, the sand cocoon collapsed into a drifting cloud, motionless in the air. At its center, dazzling blue light shone brilliantly. Han Li stood within it, a small cauldron in his hand, calmly staring at her. The saintess halted abruptly, disbelief flooding her face. A cold snort escaped Han Li's lips as he slapped the lid of the Heavenvoid Cauldron. Ripples of blue light surged outward, washing over the surrounding sand. Wherever the ripples passed, the sand vanished without a trace, as if devoured by the light itself. The saintess' heart lurched in panic. She hastily formed another hand seal, commanding the sand to attack once more. But the sand remained completely still, severed entirely from her spiritual sense. Her expression finally broke. With a sharp stomp, she struck the massive cauldron beneath her feet. It spun violently before unleashing a blinding torrent of azure light that engulfed Han Li once more. That's all for today's content. See you in the next part. Support me by becoming a member. It will give me more motivation. Thank you so much.